So I received a letter from someone today who was saying that before they encountered the Dharma, their life was basically just a tumble of anxiety and fear, running here, running there, trying to be happy, but not feeling any sense or purpose to what they were doing. But they said when they met the Dharma, that really changed, and they began to see meaning and purpose in their actions, and especially the fact that daily life actions could be transformed into the Dharma. And so they said that in that way they don't have to be caught between liking things and not liking things all day long, because everything that appears is something to practice with. So that's really something to think about, as we so often say, oh yes, everything is something to practice with. But then when something happens that we don't like it, and we let the people around us know that. And when there's happens something that we like, then we run after it. So if we can stop that automatic response and replace it with the thought of, oh, this is a practice opportunity. How would a Buddhist, how would a Bodhisattva think of this situation? And I think that could bring about a lot of creative thinking and really prevent us from getting stuck in our very natural reactions of like and dislike, want and don't want. And in the process of doing that, when we think of how would a bodhisattva act, or how would a bodhisattva feel, then it brings us back again and again to reflecting on others' kindness, to wanting to repay that, to wanting to guide them so that they have a good rebirth and can attain liberation and full awakening. And so then that leads us to bodhicitta again and again. So with that kind of motivation, let's investigate pots. So we're kind of like the monks that tea stall man commented about, that every year when they came there they kept talking about golden pots and brass pots, and so we're kind of like that, investigating the nature of pots all the time. But I was quite impressed with what this person wrote. They were new to the Dharma, and just having that ability, because I don't know about you, but the thing of like and dislike, want and don't want, comes so immediately, so quickly, that, to really practice stopping that and thinking, how would a bodhisattva see the situation? Or how can I practice the Dharma in this situation? Without letting the mind go to, I like, I don't like, and then having to pull the mind out of that state. Yeah. It's like breaking your leg and having to fix it rather than just not breaking it to start with because you've been more careful. So something like that. Okay. Thank you for your kind thought about the fan. But as we know, everything in samsara has problems, and the fan makes a lot of noise. And when you have hearing aids, I'm going to give you a tip. When you have hearing aids, wind in your hearing aids creates so much noise. Yeah, so a fan close to your ear is like, I don't know. Huh? A wind tunnel. I don't know. What's a wind tunnel? But like the noise in your ear, okay. Yeah, but it's pretty powerful. Okay. So, before we start, Venerable Jompa and Venerable Losang did their homework, and they created some new syllogisms and consequences here. So we'll see what you think about them, okay? What you're going to respond of the various different answers. You can respond what you would respond. So I won't tell you what they said, okay? So the first one, the subject lightning is a fire danger because of having the nature of being extremely hot. So what would you say? Somebody's in a debate with you about that. It says the subject lightning is a fire danger because it has the nature of being very hot. Yeah.
No pervasion.
No pervasion? Why not?
Because whatever is hot, very hot, is not necessarily a fire danger.
For example?
For example, a car engine.
Okay, so car engine is very hot, but it's not necessarily a fire danger. What constitutes a fire danger? Yeah, at what point, at what degree of heat or at what degree of proximity to fuel does something become a fire danger?
Reason not established because lightning is not necessarily very hot.
No, for example?
Is lightning just a high electrical charge? It's not necessarily hot.
No, it's very hot.
Okay.
It's the hottest thing known in the universe.
Yeah.
I looked it up because we had already done this, and
Yeah.
it's the hottest temperatures. Well, it's the hottest naturally occurring phenomena. The hottest thing they found was to smash gold atoms into each other and have them explode. But
Yeah.
it's very hot. Also, cars are built with little. They're built with a firewall in the front between the engine and the car, the passenger place. There's little tin guards to keep the exhaust from catching other components on fire. There's a lot of fire danger in an engine. They just have worked around it. So I
Okay.
would say fire danger would mean having the potential to cause a lot of potential to cause a fire.
Yeah, but here we want to prove that it's a fire danger, but here something being extremely hot, like you said, like a fire, like an engine of a car, if there's stuff around it, then it's not a fire danger. So, she's right that there's no pervasion, because whatever is extremely hot is not necessarily a fire danger.
If you get in a car wreck, there's a potential fire danger because of the engine,
Yeah,
no matter what they've done with it.
that's
Same
true.
with a hot stove. It's great if you use it right, but it's potential to burn.
Yeah.
The same with like baseboards. They can catch the drapes on fire.
Yeah. So that's why my question is, at what point do we say that because something is hot, it becomes a fire danger? Yeah. Because you could have something that's not very hot, but given the right circumstance becomes a fire danger. Or something that is very, very hot, that because of the circumstance isn't a fire danger at that particular moment.
It could be, how likely is it to come into contact with fuel that could ignite?
Mm-hmm.
That could be a measure.
Yeah, well, what we're coming up with here is that there's all sorts of other conditions. Yeah. So if we're going to make a correct syllogism, we would have to state the conditions that go along with, for example, lightning, that would make it a fire danger. Yeah.
So you would need a more distinctly defined predicate.
Yeah. Or a more distinctly defined reason, because of being extremely hot in a situation where da 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 da. So you would either have to, detail the predicate or detail the reason. Mm-hmm.
Venerable Damsho online is saying maybe a better reason is that lightning is the hottest naturally produced phenomenon, or that lightning is 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a more specific reason.
Yeah, but that doesn't make all lightning bolts fire danger. Because I've started reading too, and they would say there's all sorts of lightning strikes all the time going on. Yeah, that we're not even aware of, that, equalizes the charge between the air and the earth.
Like, there's lightning strikes in the ocean all the time. There's no fire.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's lightning strikes in the ocean all the time, but no fire.
Fire, yeah. Okay, so that's good. I mean, this is interesting. It's helping us really see how, we need to prove something. And especially if we ever enter into political discussions, then you really see that you have to be very specific with all the different conditions. Because if you make a general statement, somebody could come back and easily dismiss it. Yeah. So maybe this is why it's so easy when you have, why he has all the examples be about, established bases and products, because there's specific definitions, and it either fulfills the definition or it doesn't. Yeah. But it's interesting to see, because it really points out to us how we speak and what we assume and how we communicate with people. Yeah. Okay. So wildfires are to be feared because they can be destructive. Okay, so what do you say about that one? Wildfires are to be feared because they can be destructive. So first of all, you check, does the reason apply to the subject? Yes. Okay, it does. Then you check the pervasion. What would the pervasion be?
Anything that is destructive is necessarily to be feared.
Yeah, anything that is destructive is necessarily to be feared. That there's no pervasion with that, is there? For example, what? Yeah, right. That's a good one. Yeah. White blood cells.
Well, red ones, they would last for 24 hours or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. They the wisdom realizing emptiness, vaccines. Yeah, so just because something is destructive Yeah, doesn't mean that it's to be feared. And that's what they concluded too.
And the Buddha is fearless, so the Buddha has no fear of any of it. Doesn't fear wildfires, nuclear bombs,
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah, yeah. We're talking in terms of ordinary beings. But still, it's something that when they do debate and so much, they always specify, are we talking about ordinary beings? Are we talking about Buddhas? Because you'll see that sometimes the definition of something will change when they specify that the Buddha's included in the definition. And the definition is different than when the Buddha is not included. Okay, how about this one? Samsara has no security because it is uncertain. Okay, so is there...
Samsara is uncertain.
Yeah, is that true or... That's true. Okay, so the reason applies to the subject. Okay. Then what would the pervasion be?
Everything that is uncertain is necessarily, what was the other word?
Has no
It
security.
has no security.
Yeah.
Necessarily has no security.
Okay, so whatever is, if it is uncertain, it has no security or it is not secure. So, what does security mean? Yeah? What does security mean? Does it mean it's the same from moment to moment? Does it mean it can change, but it's predictable how it's going to change? What does security mean? Okay, if it is uncertain, does it necessarily have no security? What do you think? Can you think of something that is uncertain, that is secure? Yeah?
Time of death.
Okay.
Death.
The time of death is unsecure. Yeah. Yeah, but what does security mean there? It's secure to happen, but when we say security, do we mean secure in terms of bringing happiness? Yeah, security is kind of a funny word, isn't it?
FDIC insured bond.
Okay, but a bond that's FIDC insured is uncertain. Okay, and it still has no
Security.
No, it's not secure.
It's FDIC.
That doesn't make it secure because the U.S. could just say we're not paying our debts anymore.
I thought about the one person that wins the lotto.
Uh-huh.
So it's uncertain
What's
Who's-
uncertain?
who's going to win,
Okay.
but then the one person that does, maybe that gives them some security in the monetary way.
Okay, but how do you make that into, what would the subject be? The person who is going to win the lotto, who we don't know, has no security because, or has security because they're going to win the lotto? That doesn't bring security.
I have a definition for security here. The state of being free from danger or threat. And so there's always, samsara is always has danger. I had a friend in high school whose aunt won the lotto. And she had been spending her welfare money on lottery tickets, so they wouldn't let her collect. Yeah, they said, you're not eligible. You're not allowed to spend your money on it. You're not eligible to get your $15 million.
My goodness. Well, okay, let's check the next one. Life is unsatisfactory because our mind is a product of afflictions and polluted karma.
The subject life
Uh-huh.
is unsatisfactory.
That- That's what you're trying to prove. Because our mind is a product of afflictions and karma.
So we've changed subjects there.
Yeah. We've changed,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the reason unestablished mind.
right. Although sometimes, no, he does give an example in the book of when the reason is, is a statement kind of like that. Let me see if I can find it. Anybody find it quickly? I have to turn mine.
It says it follows with respect to the subject a pot, that it is different from functioning thing, because whatever is an established space is necessarily different from functioning thing.
Yeah.
So the reason has a pervasion in it.
And yeah. So this would, what would that be? Life is unsatisfactory because our mind, because whatever is a product of afflictions and polluted karma is necessarily unsatisfactory. We can't say because our mind, that, because the subject is our life, and then we have to make a statement about life in the end.
The pervasion has to have the predicate in it.
No. No. I mean, you mean if there's a,
If there's a pervasion in the reason, then that reason has
Okay.
to contain the predicate
Yeah.
to make it all
right,
tie
if
together.
there's a privation, yeah. Okay, as the reason. Okay. But here we're talking about life, and then we're saying our mind is a product of afflictions and polluted karma. Yeah. So we would have to change it to something like life is unsatisfactory because it is dependent on a mind that is a product of afflictions and polluted karma. Or life is unsatisfactory because it is a product of afflictions and polluted karma.
Or say
Or-
the mind is unsatisfactory because that mind is under the control.
Yeah. Or talk about the mind.
Or what you said worked of life is unsatisfactory because whatever is under the control of afflictions and karma is unsatisfactory.
Okay, you could do it
That
like
works.
that. Okay, so whatever is under the control of afflictions and karma is unsatisfactory. Okay, so does the reason apply to the subject?
Not necessarily. You'd have to say life in samsara.
Yes,
Yeah.
you would have to say life in samsara. Okay, so you'd have to make sure you'd have to specify the subject. Okay, if you said life in samsara, then do the criteria to make it a reliable syllogism work.
What's with your addition? Life in samsara is unsatisfactory because
Whatever is a product of afflictions and polluted karma is unsatisfactory. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, that works. Okay, here's another one. The dog shed has great potential to catch on fire because of being full of petrol products. Okay. So the dog shed, I think it means that, out there. I don't know that there's ever been a dog in there, but anyway, we call it the dog shed. Has a great potential to catch on fire because of being full of petrol products. Okay, so.
the dog shed is full of petrol products.
Yeah, okay, so.
So whatever is full,
No. So what does that mean? So which of the factors is fulfilled?
the property of the subject.
Yeah, the property of the subject is fulfilled, okay? And then for the pervasion,
The provision would have to be whatever is full of petrol products is necessarily easy to set on
Yeah, has a great potential to catch on fire.
That works.
Huh?
Maybe
Yeah.
whatever is full of petrol products necessarily has the potential
Yeah.
to catch on fire.
Great potential. But there's a lot of things made out of petrol products.
And most of our plastic.
Yeah, cosmetics. There's all sorts of things. Are those? Yeah.
I would think that most of those products you're mentioning could catch on fire.
You think hand lotion can catch on fire? Actually, basically anything can catch on fire, can't? If the fire is hot enough, anything can catch on fire.
Jelly in it, it could catch on fire.
Yeah.
That's what you made napalm.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, don't wear hand lotion in a
So maybe
in a lightning storm.
yeah, the lightning strikes the gas shed, the dog shed.
Some of it, I think it does. Yeah, we have petrol and petroleum products.
Petroleum.
What about Vaseline?
Vaseline is what they made napalm out of.
Oh, really? First they make Vaseline, then they make napalm?
Well, it's a similar product. It's a.
Oh.
It's a
You want to have this conversation?
We're getting a very important
it's
piece of
basically
information
jelly.
here.
It's a petroleum jelly. Yeah, it'll burn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. you
Okay,
can mix-
so then is it dangerous to put Vaseline on your baby? Because your baby might catch on fire.
It has great potential to catch on fire.
We're educating the world.
Yes.
But the term is it has campus on that not.
Yeah. Oh, right. The surface of the Pampers, that didn't burn, remember? Remember?
Stayed up in the
Okay.
barricade of it.
So we can't say there's privation here, can we? Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Barricade prevents fire because it covers things in water. Barricade, okay. Does it cover things in water?
It does come. There's full of water drops.
Yeah, it has these little poly resins that are full of water. Okay. Now, does that mean that the barricade covers things in water? It covers it. The barricade is polyester resin? Polyester resin. Yeah. Okay, and then those little bubbles are full of water. Okay.
It's the water that stops the fire, though.
Yeah, it is the water that stops the fire. But does barricade cover things in water?
It does. That's what it's doing. It's holding all these little drops of water over the.
No, but then it just sounds like you're just spraying water on it. No, it has to be water inside polyester resin drops.
It's still covered in water. Yeah, that's what it's doing. It's holding the water there.
Okay, so you can see already deciding about the syllogism is going to be very difficult because just even determining what the subject does, people have different opinions about
And
it.
it follows that supporting a building full of water can be sold at $165 a gallon and be called barricade.
No provision.
Yeah. So does covering things, but there's no privation because you can cover things in water and the water evaporates and they still catch on fire. Okay,
Yeah, well, the barricade can eventually evaporate too.
okay.
It will have to.
Yeah, and the barricade, if you leave it on for too long, it dries out. Yeah. But,
I've got enough syllogism about that.
okay,
Barricade or barricade?
okay. Let's hear it for barricade. For the people who are listening, barricade is this polyester, your polyresin, something ester, non-toxic white stuff that you comes in a bottle, and you hook if the building is in danger of catching on fire, you plug your hose into the bottle, and then the hose infuses the poly whatever it is, those little cells with water, and then that gets sprayed on the side of the building, and the fire, and then the building won't catch fire. And our police chief came up here, our fire chief, came, and he put the barricade, he sprayed it all around his finger. His finger looked like it had, what was that candy? Cotton candy on it. And then he took a blowtorch and put it right there where his finger was, and his finger didn't catch on fire because the barricade prevented it. I didn't volunteer to try.
Incontrovertible confidence.
Okay, yes. Okay, now here's another one. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, what's your syllogism?
Well, there's two here. Okay, I think I'm going to do this one instead. Barricade fire gel videos do not show people on ladders applying it because everyone is afraid of being sued.
What? 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 Barricade
Fire gel videos do not show people on ladders applying it. They don't.
Yeah.
Because everyone's afraid of being sued.
Because no one has a question about that, because you can see it in the video.
But just because
Everybody's
afraid of being sued doesn't,
property of the video.
yeah, it's not a property of the video.
Okay.
Try the next
All right. Here's the next
Okay.
one. Well, in that case, though, there's still no provision.
Okay.
And it's something we should think about. We do not see people on ladders applying barricade fire gel. Next one. Barricade fire gel is effective in protecting homes from wildfires because barricade fire gel lasts 8 hours.
So that means anything that lasts 8 hours is effective in preventing houses from catching fire.
Or the barricade kept in the container prevents unreleased pills.
No, there's no, the quality of the meat, the property of the subject is in question because we have bottles of barricade that are well over 8 hours old.
No, it's that when you spray it on, not in the bottle.
That's not in the syllogism.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Okay. Okay, last one. In case of fire, the subject, the meditation hall, will present a danger to Prajna Cottage because it has a fuel tank within 35 meters of Prajna Cottage. So, in case of a fire, the subject, the meditation hall, will prevent a danger to Prajna Cottage.
Present a danger.
Yeah, will present a danger.
Instead prevent a danger.
Oh, present a danger to Prajna Cottage because it has a fuel tank within 35 meters of Prajna Cottage.
I accept.
Yeah.
Unless it's empty, which it is right now.
Empty fuel tanks.
Now, I wonder, the subject is the meditation hall. Does the meditation hall present a danger to Prajna Cottage?
That's the thesis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but are we really talking about the meditation hall? No, we're talking about the tank, the fuel tank. Okay, so the subject shouldn't be the meditation hall.
It's the meditation hall, because if the meditation hall were to catch on fire, it could catch that fuel tank on fire. And we thought that up because if we don't have enough barricade, we're not going to spray the meditation hall. Is that going to be a danger to Prajna Cottage? And an empty fuel tank is full of fumes. That's a bomb. It's not till it heats.
Okay, but I want to ask, is the meditation hall, are we really talking about the meditation hall? Under all conditions, the meditation hall is a fire danger to Prajna Cottage? No. We're talking about the fuel tank. So the subject should be the fuel tank between the meditation hall and Prajna Cottage. Right? What's happening? Oh. Okay.
So it is the fuel tank, not the meditation.
Yeah. The subject isn't the meditation hall. Okay. It's the fuel tank. Okay. So.
I disagree with that, because that's what the point was, that if the meditation hall burnt, even
So the meditation.
it contains a fuel tank, and the meditation hall, if it caught on fire, would set that off.
Okay. So the meditation hall. You would have to specify the meditation hall with a fuel tank in it.
It's in the reason. It tells why it's in the reason. It says because it has a fuel tank within 35 meters to Prajna.
But you just said the fuel tank was in the meditation hall.
Well, it's connected to it. It's part of the structure. And if it caught on fire,
Okay. But I still don't think the subject is.
Bury the tank.
The tank is buried.
no,
It's right.
propane tank is buried.
In your home.
Yeah, but it's under the ground.
Propane tank.
Diesel that runs the heater in the meditation hall is above ground.
Can we take this offline?
You know that
Oh, you
little,
mean the one in the little bitty shed in the back there?
right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What is this?
Looks like honey.
Oh.
It
Who
looks like diesel.
who was that, Will? Oh my goodness. Are they coming in? Are they?
I told him it would be too boring.
I'm sure he'd have something to say about the fuel tank. Okay. What? Not in the first email you sent. Yeah?
Can I read it?
Sure.
You'll like this one probably.
Okay.
The subject, a southern border wall, is a good idea because it is Donnie's idea.
Yes.
Is it no provision, or is the provision opposite? That's the point of it.
Okay. So we left off, I have on 7273, so I have to. Yeah, okay.
One special answer.
Okay, so let me,
364.
yeah, but that's not where I am in the book. Okay, yeah, okay. Now I need to spell out your answers. We did all of that. Okay, one special answer. Okay. So beyond the 5 answers that clearly respond to the challenger's argument, there is one more answer that can be used. It is not so much an answer to the logic of the challenger's argument as it is like stepping back from the mark to halt your play. Huh? Stepping back from the mark to halt your play. Anyway, must make sense to somebody. There are some things we simply cannot answer. For instance, suppose a challenger says, "It follows with respect to the subject, this place in front of us, that a flesh eater is present there." Okay? So a flesh eater is a kind of spirit that Buddhists say may be around us at any time. However, such a spirit is not apprehensible to a normal person, though the Buddhists say such a creature might be apprehensible to a developed meditator. Thus, for most people, even if such creatures do indeed exist, we would not apprehend them. And also, even if a debater were a developed meditator who could apprehend flesh eaters, what would be the point of claiming it? That's my new status. I can perceive a flesh eater. Thus, the answer for such a question is, in Tibetan, tesom, meaning doubt. Not in the sense of I doubt it, but in the sense of uncertainty. For this use, the best way to translate this answer is, that is not something I know now. Okay? So in Tibetan logic, Catherine Manchester Rogers reports, someone who has had no experience of flesh eaters. I don't know, if a flesh eater eats your flesh, that I guess you're not around to say anything about it? I don't know. Someone who has no experience of flesh eaters has no way of knowing if one is present in a particular place. Such persons could not know of its presence by direct valid cognition, because even if it were present, it would be invisible to them. And they could not know of its presence by inferential reliable cognition, because even if it were present, its presence could not be proved by reasoning. Also, according to Geshe Pelden Drakpa, there is no way for that person to say one way or the other. Okay. Similarly, ordinary beings have no way of knowing if another person has spiritual qualities, such as omniscience, because these are supersensory objects for them. Purbuchok writes, Sutra says, quote, "A person cannot estimate the measure of another person," meaning the measure of another person's realizations, if that person is of a higher level than oneself. If one does so, one will degenerate. Actually, even if they're lower than yourself too, you can't really say. By the mere fact of their not appearing to oneself, it is not reasonable to say that another does not have such and such good qualities. So what he's saying here is, as ordinary beings, we can't measure somebody else's level of attainment. So we can't say that they have super knowledge or don't. We can't say they are omniscient or they aren't. Okay? Rogers then quotes Lati Rinpoche, who says that this passage indicates that it is unreasonable to hold that what one does not see does not exist. That's true. Okay. So, somebody else's level of realizations, we can't know. Right? So, in a debate, we can't, somebody gives a reason, because that person is omniscient, we can't validate that reason or invalidate it. Okay, so that's what it's getting at. So the commentarial tradition associates this answer of that which is not something I know now with at least these two impossible speculations. One is whether or not there's a flesh eater in this place in front of us, and two, whether or not another person has spiritual qualities such as omniscience. In both cases, these are impossible speculations because it is unreasonable to hold that what one does not see does not exist. Okay? So what we do not see, we can't say that doesn't exist. Okay? We don't see things that the kitties see. Yeah, have you ever noticed? They'll be sitting watching something on the wall. Yeah, we can't see it at all. Can we say that what it is that's on the wall? Can we say that there is something on the wall? Maybe we can say, you know, there's something on the wall because the kitty's staring at it. I don't know if that's a correct reason or not. Or, there's a sound because the dog's ears perked up. Yeah, maybe because they hear and see things we can't. So we can infer because they act in a certain way that maybe there's a sound or maybe there's something. But we can't say what it is. We can't say what the sound is, And when the kitty's looking at the wall, are they seeing a bug that's really small? Are they seeing a flesh eater? Are they seeing a Buddha? Yeah. We don't know.
Are they hearing mites in their ears?
Yeah,
Also known, and I've experienced this, but it's also, seen it written, that animals know that earthquakes are coming for
Right.
humans.
Yeah.
And they just-
Animals and birds. Yeah, well, birds are animals, aren't they? Yeah. They can sense an earthquake before human beings can. They said in the earthquake in Nepal a couple of years ago that in many places the birds started scattering, and then the earthquake followed. Quite amazing.
our case, many people don't believe in environmental change, global crisis, and environmental crisis. So, but some people actually can see it, not with their eyes, but due to their knowledge and making reasonings.
Yeah. Yeah. So they infer. They
Infer.
they know it by inference. Yeah.
Use this argument for rebirth too?
Hmm?
Do they use this argument for rebirth?
Rebirth, yeah, you can know by inference.
This statement, it is unreasonable to hold what one does not to hold what to, it is unreasonable to hold what one does not what
Yeah, it means if you don't see it, you can't say it doesn't
Right.
exist.
Now, I find this to be a good way to approach topics that you don't understand,
Yeah.
such as if you don't have an inference or direct knowledge of rebirth, or you don't understand the details of karma.
Yeah.
Not to say, like Geshe Sopa says, it's dangerous to say these things don't exist,
Right.
just because you don't understand them.
Right. Or just because you don't see them. Yeah, that's correct. So, and in fact, His Holiness usually follows it up with saying, if you can't tell one way or another, be on the safe side and think that there's future lives, because that will help you keep good ethical conduct. If it winds up when you die that there's no future lives, nothing lost. But if it winds up when you die there are future lives, you did well by keeping good ethical conduct. Yeah. So we have to be careful just because we don't see it or we can't establish it for ourselves. We can't say it, it doesn't exist. Okay, so then the section that says more than just these answers. The defender is not limited to just these answers lined up above. Being a defender is not just limited to a passive position of defending against what is coming your way. If that were the way of Buddhist debate, it would often be very hard for the challenger to understand what the defender believes, and it would make it hard for the defender to express a belief. And it would kind of be boring, too. And it would make it hard for we said that. Thus, the defender does not just passively respond, but may also be called upon to posit definitions, divisions, and illustrations to make a claim about how two phenomena compare, to posit subjects for debate and give reasons in support of claims, to explain the meaning of a word or phrase in a definition or a textual passage, and to explain the meaning of a whole passage. Okay? So when the challenger makes a certain statement in different situations, if it's just a part, a phrase, then they can say either why or I accept. And if it's a whole statement that's either a syllogism or a consequence, they can say I accept, the reason doesn't apply, no pervasion, or the pervasion is opposite. So those are the immediate answers they can give. But that doesn't mean that aside from that, they can't say anything else. Because the challenger can say, okay, what is the definition of this? Yeah, where does this apply? Give an example of this or that. Kind of like you saw we did when we were discussing the barricade and the different things. There developed a lot of discussion about it. So it isn't, we shouldn't think that all the defender can do is say five responses, and besides that, they just go boo, 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 boo. Okay? So some think that the challenger controls where the debate goes. But it seems the challenger and the defender have rather equal control. The challenger raises the debate topic initially, but sometimes the defender can say, I believe this, somebody come debate me. Yeah? Okay, so the challenger raises the debate topic initially, but after that, all the challenger can do is follow up on what the defender is saying. Though there is room for creativity and cleverness in the way the challenger does this. The defender can only respond to the arguments and questions that the challenger is stating, but the answers the defender gives determines the way the debate has to go. It seems that neither has full control, but both have some control. Okay? So the challenger has to respond to what the defender is saying, and the defender has to respond to what the challenger is saying. Yeah? So you can't just, in the middle of it, change topics and go off on something else. Okay? So neither one of them has complete control, but they both have some creativity and choice, how they direct things. If the defender were limited to trying to explain a position just by giving answers to the challenger's argument, that constraint would be too confining. Yeah, because the defender wants to be able to prove something themselves and, give an answer that would prove it. Okay. It would be like an emotional encounter with somebody who keeps saying something along the lines of, is this what you mean? Or when you say that, aren't you saying such and such? In other words, it would be very frustrating. In this sort of emotional narrative, the person may not really have any idea what you are saying or why you are saying it. This is why the defender is frequently called upon to give more information than just one of the answers. So they have to sometimes back up their answer, In addition, a defender can speak up to explain a position. Okay? George Dreyfus says it can be done slightly less formally during a debate. A person will say, okay, wait a second, I have something to say. This is really my position. Please try to show me that I am wrong. And then the debate can start from that. Okay, so it isn't, there's a certain formality to it, but it's not limited to that formality. Okay? So the challenger responds to the defender. Okay, so in the same way that the defender has a choice of answers at every turn, so in response to any of the defender's answers, the challenger has a choice of ways to go. Like a normal conversation, there is some freedom of movement and space for creativity. Yeah, we can really see that. If you're having a conversation with somebody and then a third person comes along and interjects something as a response to the person you're talking to, but what they're interjecting is totally different from what you're thinking and how you want the conversation to go. But what that person is saying is just a valid response, just as valid of a response as what you were going to say. Yeah? Okay, like a normal conversation, there is some freedom of movement and space for creativity. There are constraints on both parties, otherwise it would not be a formal debate. However, it is not an assembly line such that you know what is going to happen every time. So I guess it's kind of like playing chess. There's rules that you have to go by, how things can move and such, but there's a lot of freedom of choice in how you do that. The challenger's possible responses are basically of two sorts. One, the challenger may go against the answer given by the defender and give further reasoning in support of what he or she said earlier. Okay, that's what Venerable Losang was doing a minute ago about the meditation hall being a fire danger. Or two, the challenger may seek to find out why the defender is giving that answer, to understand what the defender is thinking. Now, it's interesting because in our conversations, how much do we stop and ask somebody why they think that, and how much do we usually jump in and refute their answer? Yeah, it's interesting to watch in our own personal conversations, especially if you're talking about politics or religion. Yeah, how often do we hear something and we refute it? And how often do we stop and we say, why do you believe that? Yeah, like on the topic she just brought up about climate change. Somebody says, oh, there's no such thing as climate change. And we immediately go, that's ridiculous. Of course there is. Scientists can prove it. How often do we stop and say, why do you think there's no such thing as climate change? Because if we're going to refute what that person believes, we have to know their reasons for believing it. And maybe that person has some very good reasons for refuting it. And maybe they don't, but we'll never know if we jump in and instantly contradict them without trying to understand what they're actually thinking. Yeah, why they hold the view they hold. Yeah. So you can see this in debate too, that this is something that you do instead of immediately, refuting what the other person says. You ask them, why do you hold that idea? Or give an example of this, or explain this, in the context of da-da-da-da-da. Okay? So this is, because I think in our culture, we're very used to, we just instantly contradict somebody who says something we don't like. Yeah? So this is giving us, if we want to really engage in debate and be skillful in debate, we have to slow down and be interested in what the defender believes and why they believe that, and ask them about it. Okay. Taking the defender's possible answers one by one, here are at least some ways the discussion can go. Please bear in mind that in all of these examples, the defender's answers are mistaken. Okay? So here we're going to look at, remember, because the defender has 5 possible answers. And so he's going to take us through the defender giving each of those answers and then show different ways that we as the challenger can direct the debate. Okay? So in the collected topics literature, the predominant way that debates are represented involves having a defender assert a false pervasion. Okay? So it might go like this. Yeah, so you want to get the defender, in that position, or maybe the defender just starts out the debate like this. I accept, or the challenger, well, the defender says, I accept that whatever is a valid cognizer is necessarily a direct perceiver. So maybe the challenger started out the debate saying that, what would be a good example? An inference of subtle impermanence is a valid cognizer because it is a direct perceiver, And they say, oh yeah, I accept whatever is a valid cognizer. Somebody says, the inference of subtle impermanence is a direct perceiver because of being a valid cognizer. And so maybe the challenger starts that out. And then the defender says, oh, I accept that whatever is a valid cognizer is necessarily a direct perceiver. So then, okay, how's the challenger going to respond? So here, the challenger is going to give a consequence, and say, then it follows that the subject, an inferential cognizer realizing sound as an impermanent phenomena by the sign of being a product, is a direct perceiver. Okay, so the defender said he accepted something, and the challenger says, okay, if you accept that, then this should work, Then if whatever is a valid cognizer is necessarily a direct perceiver, then an inference of sound being impermanent because it's a product should be a direct perceiver. Okay, and then the defender says, why? Okay. So why is an inferential cognizer realizing sound as impermanent phenomena by the sign of being a product, a direct perceiver? And then the challenger goes back, well, because because of being a valid cognizer, you asserted the pervasion. So if you look back, the first thing that the challenger says was, or the first thing the defender said was, I accept that whatever is a valid cognizer is necessarily a direct perceiver. So the challenger gave him, followed what that person believes, gave him an example, and the defender goes, well, that example doesn't make sense. So he says, why? And then the challenger goes, well, you already said that whatever is a valid cognizer is a direct perceiver. So I just gave you an example of a valid cognizer, the mind that realizes sound is impermanent because it's a product. So why are you all of a sudden changing your mind? You're contradicting yourself. Okay? You got it? Oops. Okay, so here, in this snippet of debate, the lines are generated automatically. There's only one way for the challenger to go. Supply the full consequence with a reason that is in accordance with what the defender has just said. Okay? So that would be like, try and think of in the syllogisms we just did, okay? But anyway, I was thinking of the syllogisms we just did at the beginning of the course. This is kind of what we did. We threw something back at somebody. Oh, well then, such and such is a fire danger because of being hot. Yeah. And then the guy, you say, then, huh?
Extremely hot soup is a fire danger.
Yeah. Extremely hot soup is a fire danger because of being extremely hot. Okay? And then you say that, the verse, and then they go, no, there's no pervasion. Yeah. And so, then the person sees the error in what they're thinking. Okay. So the challenger reminds the defender that he or she has already asserted the pervasion, and that to deny it now would contradict the earlier assertion. Yeah? So in this example, the person would go, you throw back, the soup that it has just been boiled is a fire danger because it is extremely hot. And then the defender goes, why? In other words, because he doesn't agree. And then the challenger says, you asserted the pervasion that whatever is extremely hot must be a fire danger. So the soup must be a fire danger. Yeah. And then that way the defender sees that what they're believing is incorrect. Okay? You with it? Okay. So remember, why is understood as having the force of an answer of no. So when the defender questions something, it is fair to assume that they hold the opposite view. Okay, so for instance, and here's another way the debate may go, the challenger says it follows that the subject of pot is different from functioning thing. Okay, and the defender says, why? In other words, why is a pot different from functioning thing? So the challenger says, then it follows that the subject of pot is not different from functioning thing. Okay. And the defender says, yeah, sure, I accept that a pot is not different than from functioning thing. And then here's another way that the debate could go. Then the challenger says, well, give a reason justifying why a pot is not different from functioning thing. So why isn't a pot different from functioning thing? Okay. So can you give a reason for that? Somebody says, give a reason justifying that the subject of pot is not different from functioning thing. What can you say? Because it is different from functioning thing. Well, somebody could go, well, because a pot is a functioning thing. Yeah. And then what would you say? Yeah. So then you have to say the pot is, how would you say that? Yeah, the pot is different from functioning thing because it has a different name and a different meaning. Yeah, or you could you present a consequence? Yeah, like what?
So it follows that a pot is the same in name and meaning as functioning thing.
Because it's not different from functioning thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so does it pervade that whatever is not different from functioning thing is necessarily one with functioning thing? That's true. Yeah. Okay, so you could lead it that way and make it go that direction. Yeah.
I think at that point you could also posit a pervasion or like a consequence that includes a pervasion. Like, so it follows that whatever is a functioning thing is not different from functioning thing. Because, that person gave that answer because it
Except
is
you're
a functioning
changing the subject. We're talking about the pot.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought a minute ago you said if you say to someone, give a reason justifying that the subject of pot is not different from functioning thing, and they would say the subject pot is not different from functioning thing because it is a functioning thing. Isn't that what you stated?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the guy says, "Oh, but it is a functioning thing."
Yeah. So then you follow up with that. You say, so it follows that whatever is a functioning thing is necessarily not different from functioning thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because functioning thing is different from functioning thing. Okay. No, wait a minute. What was the syllogism you get? What was your consequence?
Okay, so the person said the subject of pot is not different from functioning thing because it is a functioning thing.
Right.
So then you say it follows that whatever is a functioning thing is necessarily not different from functioning thing.
Mm-hmm. Whatever is a functioning thing is necessarily not different from functioning thing.
Meaning that every functioning thing would be functioning thing.
Right. And the guy may go, yes. He might go, yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, so you would have to, I think, eventually come back to the definition of what different from functioning thing is so that the person would understand it. Okay. Or alternatively, at this point, the challenger could have said, okay, so the defender said, I accept that a pot is not different from functioning thing. That a pot is not different from functioning thing. Okay. And then the challenger could say, it follows that the subject of pot is different from functioning thing because of being a phenomena that is diverse from functioning thing. Okay, so there you're going to the definition, towards the definition.
What Venerable Lamso said would be called the gloss. I think he uses that term.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that would be more likely to make this person see the point.
Mm-hmm. So note well, at the end of the first version above, before the challenger's alternative answer, the challenger asks the defender, give a reason justifying, okay, that the subject of pot is not different from functioning thing. In the Tibetan, what the challenger is saying is a setup for the first two parts of a syllogism, more literally translated as the subject of pot is not different from functioning thing. Okay, as was done in debate in Tibetan Buddhism. Just like the countless other things in the process of debate, both the challenger and the defender know what this means in this context. The challenger is prompting the defender to give a reason justifying the thesis that was just accepted, which is that a pot is not different from functioning thing. Okay? And since the statement is a syllogism, they both know that the defender is called upon to give a straight answer that will indeed form a valid argument. This is one of the ways that the challenger draws out what the defender's positions are. Experience has made it clear that English, well, before I say that, but in the example I gave, where the guy just doesn't even know the definition and says, well, yeah, pot is not different from functioning thing because it is a functioning thing. You know, he's giving a straight answer according to his wrong understanding. So you're drawing out his wrong understanding and then you can refute it. Okay, let's come back to it. Now he's going to talk about Westerners. Experience has made it clear that English speakers understand the straightforward direction to give a reason better than they understand a rising inflection at the end to mark the expectation. Because if you look back at what the challenger says, give a reason justifying that is in parentheses. In other words, that is not being said in Tibetan. The Tibetan just says the subject of pot is not different from some functioning thing. The meaning is give a reason that justifies that. But in the Tibetan, you don't say give a reason. You just say that the subject of pot is not different from functioning thing. You would say it like that. Yeah. Okay, so what he's saying here is that for English speakers, we don't always pick up like the tone of voice or the rising inflection at the end. It's much clearer to say to somebody, give a reason that justifies this.
I think this is why he was making such a distinction earlier in this chapter, but if someone gives there's a consequence that has a subject and what's the name of that?
Point to clarify.
Yeah, if someone gives a consequence and says it follows, and then they give a subject and a point to clarify, then you have two answers. You can say why or I accept.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't say why or I accept if someone just gives you a subject and a thesis, a subject and a predicate. He made that distinction earlier. Yeah.
No,
Yes, he made that.
if somebody just gives a subject and a predicate,
They're expecting a reason. They're not.
no, he said
I'll
there are
find it
two
and point it out.
possible answers, why and I accept.
This is why I'm bringing it up, because I thought it was very clear that he said if it's a consequence and someone says it follows and then gives the subject and this point to clarify, you have two answers. Why or
You mean if the
challenger, let's say
if the challenger says that.
I'll find the
Yeah,
citation.
try and find it. Yeah, because if you find it, then it directly contradicts what he said earlier. Because he said quite clearly that there's two possible answers when
Venerable-
you only have a snippet. Anyway,
Venerable Lamsel found it on page 347. It's under a section called the Defender's Answers. It says I think that's if the challenger states a stem of an argument, a subject, and a point of clarification of a consequence without a reason, the defender goes to a set of just two possible answers, why or I accept. If the challenger states a full three-part consequence, I think it's on the next page, then that's talking about the syllogism. But then there was a statement where he said,
yeah, if it's a three-part, then it's different than a two-part.
on the next page, or 349, if the challenger states a syllogism thesis, the first two parts of the syllogism, to a defender, the expectation is not that the defender will give one of the two answers above, but that the defender will supply a reason justifying the thesis. So he's made that distinction very clearly.
Okay, I don't have the page numbers in what I'm reading from, so I would have to find it. Maybe you can give me something and I can research it, do a search afterwards. Yeah, because that's quite different than what he said earlier.
That's what he said.
It's under.
Yeah, didn't he say earlier?
That's what he said earlier. On page 347.
No, wait a minute.
It's under note well after the other section, so
Okay,
right before three-part syllogism.
wait a minute. Okay, I'm going to have to,
Yeah.
I can't find what you're saying, so we'll have to take this offline, okay? Because I can't find it. And now I'm really lost. Okay.
After the defender says the reason is not established.
Okay, no, wait a minute, I've just found where we left off. Okay, so this thing later, send me a snippet of what it says, and I'll do a search, and tell me what page it is on, and maybe I can borrow someone's book. Okay, that's the project difficulty with using Kindle. Some using Kindle and some using books. You can't always find where you're together. Okay, so then the next. Okay, so did everybody understand that point there? That it's good in English to say supply the reason that justifies. Okay. Yeah, so there, the challenger says to the person, supply the reason. Yeah. So then the next heading, after the defender says the reason is not established. So you see here, he's going through the possible answers. Okay, so the first one was why, meaning no. The second one was the reason is not established. Okay. And so here it's talking about snippets. Yeah. Okay. So when the defender questions it could be a full. Yeah. Anyway, when the defender questions the establishment of the reason, either for when the full reason is given, the predominant response from the challenger is to give another reason justifying the earlier one. Let's read that again. When the defender questions the establishment of the reason, the predominant response from the challenger is to give another reason justifying the earlier one. Okay, so you had already given a reason. The defender didn't understand that, so now you have to prove why the reason applies to the subject. So you have to give another syllogism that explains why the reason applies to the subject. Okay, so here the defender says, I accept that whatever is a color is necessarily red. So the challenger probably said, whatever is a color is necessarily red. And the defender says, I accept. Yeah, so our defender is not too bright. The challenger then says, it follows that whatever is a color is necessarily red. So he's restating what the defender said. And the defender confirms that and says, I can accept. Then the challenger says, then it would follow that the subject, the color of a white conch shell is red. It doesn't have to be. A conch shell is not religious. A white religious concept, that's, sorry. That, huh?
He's referring to the footnote. They were used a lot in monasteries in ancient India.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, they call it a religious conch shell, but I'm saying, I'm saying the term religious conch shell is ridiculous because a conch shell can't be religious. Okay? What it means is, a conch shell used in religious ceremonies. Okay. But the English isn't so good to call it a religious conch shell. Okay. Yeah, so I could say, conch shell, there's no pervasion. The conch shell is not religious, And then you have to prove to me why it's a religious conch shell before we can even get back to what we're talking about here. Okay? Okay? So it's the same kind of idea. Okay, so the defender accepted that whatever is a color is necessarily red. So then the challenger says, then it would follow that the subject, the color of a white conch shell, is red. Okay? So, what's the defender going to go? He says, what? Or here, actually, why? Meaning, I don't agree. So, why is the color of a white religious conch shell red? And the challenger says, because it's a color. You asserted the pervasion that whatever is a color is necessarily red. So I'm just going along with what you said, buddy. So what you said isn't making much sense. But then the defender doesn't realize it. The defender, is a little bit hard-headed and doesn't realize that his statement's wrong. So he comes back and says, the reason that the color of a white religious conch shell is a color is not established. Yeah? So he's saying that, whatever is, I don't believe that whatever is white is a color. That's what he's saying, okay? So then the challenger says, it follows that the subject, the color of a white conch shell, is a color because of being white. Okay? So you see, because the defender didn't accept didn't accept that the reason is a property of the subject, the challenger has to prove to him now that the reason is the property of the subject, because the guy's not getting it. Okay? So note that the challenger dropped out the old point of clarification, okay, which is whether or not the color of a white conch shell is red, and drops in a new one, whether or not the color of a white conch shell is a color, in response to the defender's answer. The challenger has moved on to address the new point of clarification, the current issue. Okay, so because the guy didn't understand what was said at first, then he has to prove that the reason applies to the subject. Okay, so here is the maneuver. It is simple, and it is essential to know this. The reason from the earlier consequence becomes the predicate of the next consequence. The old predicate drops out, and a new reason is given in support of the new predicate. It's easy. Okay. So I don't know if that explanation, that shows you how you move the parts around, but basically the point is somebody said the reason's not established, and so you have to show why the reason is established. So to do that, you have the same subject, and then the reason has to be the predicate, and then you have to supply another reason that proves that your subject is the first quality. Okay? So as applied to the above snippet of debate, the reason of the earlier consequence has become the predicate of the next consequence. The earlier consequence was, it follows that the subject, the color of a white conch shell, is red because of being a color. So that was the first consequence. In that argument, the challenger was trying to show that, in accordance with the defender's view that whatever is a color is necessarily red, being red would be the property of the color of a white conch shell. But once the defender denies the establishment of the reason that the color of a white conch shell is a color, the challenger then moves to address that concern and prove that the subject is a color. The issue of whether or not the subject is red is set aside for the moment while the challenger addresses the defender's present doubt, which is whether or not the subject is a color. Okay? So it follows that the subject, the color of a white conch shell, is a color. Why? Because of being white. Okay, then the defender goes, oh yeah, that conch shell's white, so the color of the conch shell is a color. Yeah, Oh, yeah, because it's white, and if it's white, it must be a color. Okay? And then after that, you're going to go back to the other. Yeah, whatever is the white conch shell is red because it is a color. Yeah, then you'll go back to that. Okay, so thus the new consequence given in response to the defender's answer takes color as the new point of clarification, whether or not being a color is a quality of the subject. Okay, so we're still talking about the color of the white conch shell. The former reason has become the new predicate. Okay, the old predicate drops out and a new reason is given in support of the new consequence. So the flow may be illustrated as, and you see the diagram. Okay, so your first one is, it follows that the subject is red because of being a color. Okay, which that's what the defender didn't accept. So now it follows that the subject, the conch shell, is a color because of being white. So, okay. So what was the reason in the first one becomes the predicate in the second. Because you have to prove to the person that the reason is a property of the subject. Yeah, it's kind of like in our discussions. We have this happen a lot of times when we're talking about things. Yeah? We should notice in our common discussion when this happens, because this happens a lot, and then somebody has to, they usually explain it instead of giving us a consequence, although we should try it sometime, giving a consequence. And then we go, oh yeah, now I get it. Yeah, so how many times in our normal discussions oh yeah, okay, that's what you're talking about. Okay, so this is like normal discussion in that people tend to address the issue at hand to seek to justify their claims that are being denied before they can proceed. Of course, the debate may grow into a long stream of new consequences justifying the former ones. Okay, so it could be that, we're talking about, I don't know, doing something with the wood in the part of the forest that was down there. Okay, and somebody who's planning something, they have the whole thing planned out, so they go to the long-term conclusion. Yeah, and ask the person to do something. But that person doesn't have the big picture and they don't know the long-term conclusion. So they go, what are you talking about? Yeah, and then you have to go back and explain what you're talking about. Either explain it, in a way of giving a syllogism, or explaining this as like a consequence of a point of clarification. It's funny because it says, whenever it says it follows that, it's a consequence. But it sounds to me that like it's a syllogism. The subject, the white conch shell is a color because of being white.
This person is saying it follows. Mm-hmm. That, where are they getting that from? Like, why are they drawing that conclusion? It just seems, unrelated. They might even go...
I'm not understanding what you're saying.
So the person says the reason is not established.
Okay.
And then they say, well, it follows that the color of a white shell is a color because of being white.
Uh-huh.
How do they get that from the person saying the reason is not established?
Because the previous thing was that the person said the color of the white conch shell is red because of being a color. Because at the beginning, somebody said whatever is a color is necessarily red. Okay, so it started with somebody saying whatever is a color is necessarily red. Okay, so whatever is a pea pine is necessarily a deciduous tree. Deciduous means the leaves fall off, right? Okay, so whatever is a ponderosa pine is necessarily a deciduous tree.
Why?
Why? Because it's a tree. Or no, I would, you would have to give a, you would have to give a whole thing. The, a ponderosa pine is a deciduous tree because of being a tree. Somebody says that, okay? And then you say, why? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no perpetual. Oh, yeah, I gave the wrong example. Okay. So, what a ponderosa pine is necessarily a deciduous tree because of being a flower. Established, okay. So, okay, no, I'm giving things that are backwards.
You can say why if you don't have.
Yeah. No, I would have to say, here's how it would go. A ponderosa pine is a flower because of being a tree. And then, no, that's not. I'm trying to give an example. How about whatever is a color is necessarily red? Okay, no, but somebody says whatever is a tree is necessarily deciduous. Okay, how about that one? Why? Okay, and then the person says, no, the defend.
You're the challenger. You started it.
I started it. Okay, and you say why, and then I say, what do I say? Help. Then I say, oh, okay. Now you said why. No, you're supposed to say I accept. You're supposed to say I accept. Okay? Yeah. You're wrong. Yeah. Whatever is a ponderosa pine is a flower because of being a tree. And you say I accept. I mean, whatever there's a pine is a deciduous tree. No, because of, no, whatever is a ponderosa pine is a flower because of being a tree. I accept, okay. And then, so I say, it follows.
That the subject, a rose, is a tree. It's a ponderosa pine because it is a flower.
No. Yeah, we need to look at the exact, if we need to go back to this thing, okay, of.
They start with colors because they're easy.
They also start without giving a reason. They start without giving a reason.
Yeah.
It's a two-part, and then you get your two
Right.
answers.
No, except here he's starting in the middle because he starts with a D. You have to start with the C, okay? So the challenger says,
Something bigger.
okay, the challenger says, whatever is a tree is necessarily a ponderosa pine, okay? Whatever is a tree is necessarily a ponderosa pine.
And the defender says, I accept.
And the defender says, I accept.
And the challenger
Says, it would follow that what was our first one? Whatever is a tree is necessarily a ponderosa pine. Okay, so that, then the defender would say, if, yes, yeah, that a dogwood is,
Hold on. These are all kind of dead. Yeah, I read that one, throw them away. It would follow that a dogwood
yeah,
is
is a,
ponderosa pine.
yeah,
because
it's
it is a tree.
because it is a tree. Okay. Okay. And then the defender says,
You say, if we follow the dogwood as a pea pine, and you say, why?
Because it is a tree.
Well,
Okay.
if we follow the format here, we have to do it
It's
step
a
by
pea
step.
pine. Okay.
yeah,
We say, why?
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay.
Right?
Why?
Challenger says, why is the dogwood
Fine, yeah, and then we would say that the dogwood is a pea pine because of being a tree. You asserted the privation. Yeah, so you asserted the privation. And then the defender says that the reason is not established. Okay,
I think
so what was the reason? Like, what is a pea pine? Because of being a tree. So the guy doesn't understand that the dogwood is a tree. Okay, hold on.
No, okay, the reason's not established.
Okay,
That's it.
That a dogwood is a tree.
yeah, that a dogwood is a tree. Okay, and so then what does the challenger say?
It follows the subject.
Follow, yeah, that the dogwood is a tree because of, we need the definition of a tree, right? Hmm?
It's roots, trunks, and branches.
Yeah, because it has no, just having roots and branches, it could be a bush.
And bark.
And being over 10 meters or 30 feet.
Well, a bush can be pretty big, maybe not 30 feet.
Bush and shrub are kind of.
Okay, somebody look up the definition of tree.
I've got it.
Okay,
It's quite long.
okay,
Because it fits the definition of tree.
Oh, good. That was the tree because it fulfills the definition of tree.
yeah, well, we can just make a symbol, but read what the definition of tree is.
A woody perennial plant, typically having a single stem or trunk, growing to a considerable height and bearing lateral branches at some distance from the ground.
Okay, so let's say that whole thing altogether, we're gonna call X,
Right.
okay?
It is because.
Yeah, is because of being X. Okay, so we've proved that the dogwood is a tree. Yeah, then we go back and say, dogwood is a pea pine. What do we say
Go
that?
back to the full syllogism, dogwood is a pea pine because it is a tree.
Yeah. Then we would say it,
Correct.
yeah, we would say then,
Because he came to the correct conclusion with the conch shell being white in color. We have to somehow.
yeah, he didn't come back to it, he didn't explain it. Color being white, fossil subject, color of white size. Yeah, he didn't come back to how it would finish, he just showed this part.
The challenger's answer to why is different format He would, using the.
Use your microphone, Venerable Lhasa. Which one?
In the format in the book, the challenger's answer to why is simply because of being a color. So here it would be because of being a pea pine.
No. No,
Yeah,
no, because you have to, in the example, you have to go back and prove that the white conch shell is a color.
this is before they get to the color, to that part. The answer to why, if you look on in the thing, the defender says why, and the challenger simply says because of being a color. The equivalent here would be because of being because of being a pea pine.
Color is the bigger of the red and tree is the bigger of the pea.
Oh, you're right. Okay, because of being a tree. Yeah.
Okay, so you prove that it's a tree. Why'd you erase it?
Because of being a tree, is what we, right?
That should be the only answer. Yeah, it shouldn't be a full syllogism yet. Just like because of being a color.
But it's,
and then you asserted
it's
the pervasion.
implied, the whole syllogism is implied.
And you asserted the pervasion is the next part of that,
Yeah,
which you did.
you say the reason,
Is not established. Because this person is slow, the reason is established. A dog would. Is a tree. And then he goes back and says, it follows that the dogwood is a tree because, and gives the definition of a tree.
Dogwood's not the best example because they're a little shrubby.
well, let's not do that. Okay. Let's just go back. Oh, my thing got screwed up here. Oh, how do I get out of that? Let's just go back to the initial thing and substitute the words, okay? Except my format, what do you do when your Kindle?
Maybe we give them a book.
I read something that. Oh, wait a minute. No, I think I got it. I got it back. I just pressed a bunch of things and don't ask me how I did it. Okay. So where are we?
Never is read as necessarily, never is a color is necessarily read.
Okay. So it follows whatever was, and then the defender says, I accept it. And then the challenger says it would follow the subject, the color of a white conch shell is red. So then it would follow that a dogwood is a pea pine because subject, no, then it would follow that the subject, the color of a white conch shell is red. Then it would follow that the subject, what are we talking about? A dogwood is a pea pine. Okay. And then the other one says why. Okay. And then the other one says because of being a color.
Oh, it's gotta be because of
Being a tree. Because of being a tree. Okay. You asserted the pervasion.
Whatever is a tree is necessarily.
Oh, that whatever is a tree is necessarily a pea pine. Yeah, that's good to do that. No, just because of being a color, you asserted the pervasion, and then in parentheses, that whatever is a tree is necessarily a pea pine. Okay. And then the defender says, the reason is not established. So the defender is saying that it's not established that a dogwood is a tree. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what the defender says. It's not, the reason is not established. Okay? Then the challenger says it follows that the dogwood is a tree because of being X, the definition of tree. Yeah? Okay. And then you want to go back, because what was the original misconception was that whatever is a tree is necessarily a pea pine. So then you would want to say a dogwood is, then it would follow that a dogwood is a pea pine.
The tree, proven that the reason is established, so then you can assert your syllogism again.
Yeah.
And then they can check it again to see if there's pervasion.
Okay.
The dogwood is necessarily.
This
Yeah.
dogwood is a pea pine.
Yeah, the dogwood is a pea pine because of being a tree.
So they either have to accept or they have to say no pervasion at that point.
Yeah. Or they have to admit they're wrong.
Yes.
So hopefully at this point, because you've been through this, they would say, oh, okay, let's change the subject. Yeah?
The last line is the defender says a dogwood is a
No, the defender says, defender has to accept that.
Yeah.
I would accept what the challenger said last, it follows that the dogwood is a tree because of the definition of the tree. And then the defender would I accept.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a minute, I can't see it. The challenge says it follows that a dogwood is a tree because it is the definition of a tree. Okay. And then, yeah, the defender would say, okay. And then the challenger would say, the dogwood is a pea pine because of being a tree.
Or would you go back to the original?
Yeah.
Say that it follows then.
Yeah.
So whatever
Yeah.
the tree is necessarily a pea pine? No, you can go back to the original assertion.
Okay. What's the original thing? Whatever is a tree is necessarily a pea pine. So what we want to prove is that there are things that are trees that are not necessarily pea pines. Okay?
Just took this little sidetrack because this person wasn't convinced about the reason being established.
Right.
And so now you can go back to the consequence that you threw to this person. So
Yeah.
it follows that a dogwood is a,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you could go back to that because you've already established that the reason, or you've shown that the reason is established. So then that person either has to,
Oh, right. Yeah,
say-
because before they said why, which means no. Now they're stuck.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
because you've proven
Okay,
to them.
So we are right. The dogwood
But it
is
is a pea pine because.
a dogwood is a pea pine because of being a tree. You know, it follows that.
It follows that.
Yeah. It
If
follows
they're
that.
stubborn, they will say no pervasion. Because that's really what they're left with at that point.
Mm,
And then you prove the pervasion.
yeah.
And then they have to drop their original thesis that whatever is a tree is a pea pine. Because you have,
They already accepted that. At the beginning. They already accepted whatever is a tree is a pea pine.
yes, and that's a fallacious statement, right?
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
by going through these steps, then we're showing that they'll have to contradict their original acceptance, and then we can say tsa.
Yeah.
Unless they just accept that.
Or at this point, maybe you could just give the thing that say, whatever is a tree is not necessarily a pea pine. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
When you read these kind of debates, and
Mm-hmm.
like when you read this debate, whatever is a color is necessarily red, it goes on and on with these wrong answers. And they're just showing you every possible way that you could go until you actually
Yeah.
bring the person around to saying there's no other place to go except to say, I contradict or
Yeah.
I take back my original thesis.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I'm still stuck on the part where it says it follows that the dogwood is a tree. That doesn't follow anything that's been said within this debate. They're just bringing in the definition of a tree out of nowhere. If anything, they would say it follows that the dogwood is not a tree.
It's because of the first statement.
Because
You supplied a reason to that first consequence. It would follow a dogwood is a pea pine. Why? Because it's a tree. So there you've got a full syllogism in those two lines. It follows that a dogwood is a pea pine because of being a tree.
And it is a tree because it's a such and such.
Yeah.
Now, if they say reason not established, then you have to prove that that reason is established. A dogwood is a tree. So then you give a definition. It's a consequence of them saying, no, it's not established that a dogwood is a tree.
It follows that the dogwood is, they're disagreeing with the defender. Right? The reason is not established. The defender says, the dogwood is not a tree. Sorry, you don't have a valid reason. And then they're saying, oh, no.
The consequence of saying that, the consequence of you saying that the reason it's not established that the dogwood is a tree is that it does follow that a dogwood is a tree. Because here's the reason why.
But how would you say that it follows? They're completely disagreeing with this person's position.
It follows from what they said. This is the
No, you're giving a syllogism at that point. No, everything says it follows.
It follows that way.
Because of being a color. Yes.
It follows.
Oh, no, you don't always say it follows that. Yeah. How about it's time to dedicate? Okay.
This is how we think.
Yeah, so leave it up. Yeah, and then run through it tomorrow. Okay? Come to the stand-up meeting a little early and run through it and see if it makes some sense. Because we're taking it a step beyond what he did in the book. What he did in the book
Follows that the dogwood is a tree because of.
of being that, he stopped the argument there. But we're still trying to show the guy that whatever is a tree is not necessarily a pea pine. Because we're saying, but a dogwood is a tree, and the dogwood is not a pea pine. So what you said, that whatever is a tree is necessarily is a pea pine, that's nuts. Okay, that's what it's coming down to. Okay, maybe we should write that. What did I just say?
It's nuts. It's nuts.
No, you're trying to say, because whatever is tree. Then you say whatever is a tree is not necessarily a pea pine. Yeah. For example, a dogwood. Yeah, that works. Because you've proven now that the dogwood is a tree. There's probably different ways you could take it at this point. Okay.